in reality, most people make a big mistake here. What is that mistake? It is that they the words they have memorized again. 여러분, 안녕하세요. Today, I'm going to introduce a method for memorizing 1600 words in just 3 weeks. You might be thinking, what? Memorizing 1600 words in just 3 weeks? That's impossible. Or that's only for a genius, right? Don't worry. If you use the right method, memorizing 1600 words in 3 weeks is absolutely possible for anyone. And it has nothing to do with your age, memory capacity, or natural intelligence. What truly matters is whether you are using a correct, repeatable method. I can say that confidently because my students actually memorized 1600 words within 3 weeks. Some students actually memorized words shorter than that. For example, Alma is a 14-year-old student in Spain. I taught her how to memorize the vocabulary efficiently using my method. She studied 4 hours a day and memorized 1600 words in just 15 days.
Oh, reason.
Reason. What about this one?
China.
That's good.
그렇지만 nevertheless or but.
Oh, good.
벌써 I'm ready.
Number 2?
Yes, number 2.
Yes, good.
나보다 bad.
Oh, amazing.
Alone.
Oh, yes.
Major.
Yes, major.
So side or page.
Side or page. Oh, that's good. Yes.
In addition, in the case of Debbie, 26 years old, living in India, she applied my method, studied 3 hours a day, and memorized 1600 words in just 13 days.
Scissors, ma'am.
Oh, that's good.
Kalbi spare ribs, ma'am. Khara go, ma'am. Kamsa thank.
Wow.
Thag each.
Oh, yes.
Like these students, I have several students who memorized vocabulary in a very short time. So in this video, I'll share both the theory and practice of vocabulary memorization so that you can start memorizing words efficiently from today. Here's what I cover. I'll explain 3 key points necessary for memorizing words efficiently, and I'll show you actual practice where I'll demonstrate how to memorize words using a vocabulary book. If you put today's content into practice, your Korean learning will dramatically change. I guarantee it. By the way, I previously made a video on how to memorize 1600 words in a month, but what I'm sharing this time is the updated version of that method. So if you want to escape from the vocabulary memorization swamp, make sure to watch this until the end. I promise your vocabulary memorization will skyrocket. Hooray! Yes! 그럼 시작할게요. Now, I'm going to share with you the 3 key points for memorizing vocabulary super efficiently. First, repetitive learning. The first key point for memorizing Korean vocabulary super efficiently is repetition. This is a very important concept, so let's say it together. Repetition. Did you say that in front of the screen? Good! I will watch you! One of the biggest misconceptions about memorizing words is the belief that you can remember them perfectly in just one try. It's not going to happen. Have you heard of Ebbinghaus forgetting curve? According to this curve, people forget about half of what they've learned after just 1 hour and about 2/3 after a single day. So you are going to forget half of what I am explaining right now. Oh, that is really sad reality. 슬퍼요. But this is how it is, okay? In other words, humans are forgetful creatures. No matter how hard you study, over time you will forget things. It's not because you are too old to remember, it's simply because everyone forgets. So, what should you do when you forget? The answer is simple. Review repeatedly until you recall it again. When you learn something new, you shouldn't expect to memorize it in one shot. Repetition has to be the foundation of your study. This is the very important part, so I will say it again. Repetition has to be the foundation of your study. Also, many people think that forgetting means that information has been erased from memory, but that's not true. Forgetting actually means you can't retrieve the memory at that moment. In other words, the knowledge is still stored in your brain, but you can't pull it out. by repeatedly reviewing and feeding that information back into your brain, the time it takes to recall it gradually becomes shorter. If you've gone through a vocabulary book 2 or 3 times, you probably know what I mean. As you can imagine, the second and third reviews usually take less time than the first. That's because even if you feel like you forgot everything, your brain still remembers a little bit of what you learned before. So when you review it, the words come back much faster. Now, you might be wondering, so how many times should I review a vocabulary book? My answer is at least 7 times. Oh, 7 times. That's a lot. Yes, I can hear you. In fact, even 10 or 20 rounds is totally fine. So from the very beginning, approach vocabulary memorization with the mindset that you'll go through it at least 7 times. Okay? Second, 1 second memorization. The second key point for memorizing Korean vocabulary super efficiently is 1 second memorization. Let me ask you a question. What's the standard for saying you are truly memorized a word? If you spend about a minute trying to recall it and finally remember, does that count as memorized? Father? Does it count as memorized? For me, the answer is no. My standard is this: you can only say you've memorized a word if you can recall its meaning within 1 second. If it takes you 10 seconds to finally remember it, that's not memorized. So ultimately, the goal is to be able to recall the meaning of all 1600 words within 1 second. Among people studying vocabulary, very few actually focus on this speed factor. But when you are speaking with a native speaker, if you can't understand what they say within 1 second, you simply won't be able to keep up with the conversation. And the same goes for Korean exams-like topic. If the meanings of words don't come to you quickly, you won't be able to finish long reading or listening passages in time. Of course, in the beginning, it might take longer, so it's fine to start with a standard, like, as long as I can remember it within 5 seconds, that's okay. Then gradually raise the bar for yourself. First 3 seconds, and eventually down to 1 second. If 1 second memorization feels a bit difficult, you can start with the word quizzes I created on my website. Each lecture includes a 40-word quiz, so you can check your vocabulary level by testing yourself. Once you've memorized 1600 basic words, you can even try the 100-word quiz. I'll put the link in the description box. Sorting. The third key point for memorizing Korean vocabulary super efficiently is sorting. This simply means separating the words you've already memorized from the ones you still haven't. It's simple but very effective. For example, let's say you are trying to memorize 40 words. Some people test themselves on all 40, and if they get even one wrong, they go back and review all 40 words again. But here's the problem. Among those 40 words, there were words you already know perfectly. Reviewing those memorized words again and again is just inefficient. So instead, mark the words you already know as past and only restudy the ones you couldn't recall correctly. Here's how you can do it step by step. First, study through the new words you want to memorize. Next, test yourself to check if you remember them correctly. Then sort the words into 2 groups, the ones you remembered and the ones you didn't. A simple way is just to put a check mark next to the words you got right. After that, only go back and focus on the ones you couldn't remember. Repeat this process, and once all of the words have check mark, you are done! So make sure to use sorting to memorize words more efficiently. Super efficient memorization method. Practice edition. Step 1. Preparation. Now from here, it will be the practice section. Let's actually work on vocabulary memorization together. To begin with, I'll introduce 4 things to prepare. First, the vocabulary book of 1600 beginner level words that I created. Please download the vocabulary book from the description box of this YouTube video and print it out. If you look at the vocabulary book, you will see that it is designed to memorize 40 words at a time. Next, the beginner vocabulary listening video. This is also linked in the description of this YouTube video, so please check it. Also, please prepare one A4 sheet of paper to use for the vocabulary memorization check. And please prepare a pen. Step 2, pronunciation check. From here, I will actually start memorizing words, but what do you think it really means to memorize a word? The answer is simply to memorize the spelling, meaning, and pronunciation together as a set. Especially for beginners of Korean, I think many students do not know the correct pronunciation in the first place. In that situation, if you only look at the spelling and memorize the pronunciation vaguely, when the sound you memorize is different from the actual sound, you will not be able to recognize it when you hear it. For example, do you know how to pronounce this? By the way, you might not have heard of perilla leaves before, but they are a very common leafy vegetable in Korea. We often use them to wrap grilled pork or beef. So this leaf is a staple ingredient in Korean cuisine. Going back to track, can you read it out loud? You might think it is read as 깨씹, but the correct answer is 깻잎. However, if you memorize the word thinking it is 깨씹, when someone actually says 깻잎 in a conversation, you will not understand what they are talking about. Moreover, interestingly, Koreans cannot understand the word 깨씹. If you go to the Korean restaurant and say 깨씹 주세요, 깨씹 주세요, 깨씹 주세요, 깨씹 주세요. No matter how hard and loud you say, they cannot understand your word. Therefore, in vocabulary study, always make sure to check not only the spelling and meaning, but also the pronunciation and memorize them together as a set. So at the beginning, for the range of words you will study, play the listening video and check the spelling, meaning, and pronunciation. And then read the words out loud along with the video. So as a reading practice, let's now read aloud together, both the Korean words and their English translations. Here we go!
가게,
가게, store, shop,
가격,
가격,
price,
price,
가구,
가구,
furniture,
furniture,
가깝다,
가깝다, close,
가끔,
가끔,
sometimes,
sometimes,
가다,
가다,
go,
go,
가르치다,
가르치다,
teach,
teach,
가방,
가방,
bag,
bag,
가볍다,
가볍다,
light,
light,
가수,
가수,
singer,
singer,
가슴,
가슴,
chest,
chest,
breast,
breast,
가요,
가요,
song,
song. That's the idea. However, you don't need to repeat this many times. Since the purpose is to understand the Korean pronunciation, if that is no problem, it is fine to finish after 1 or 2 times. Step 3, memorization. Next, I will move on to memorization. If during the previous reading aloud, you already somewhat memorized the words, you can continue straight to the test method that I will explain after this. If you still have not memorized them at all, then please read aloud the Korean words and their English meanings alternately, 5 times each, doing this for about 3 rounds. At this time, instead of focusing on memorizing, focus only on reading aloud quickly and continuously. Some of you may think, wait, this way I don't feel like I'm memorizing at all. But that's not a problem. You don't really memorize words when you try to put them into your head. You actually memorize them when you try to recall them. Therefore, once you finish reading aloud, even if your memory is vague, move on to the test method. Previously, you read aloud at the speed of the audio, but this time, while understanding the meaning, try to read as quickly as possible. If you can, aim for 1 word per second. Now, I'll show you how to do it. I'll also be reading at about 1 word per second, but if you can't keep up, feel free to pause the screen and read aloud at your own pace. Alright, let's go! 가게, store, 가게, store, 가게, store, 가게, store, 가게, store. 가격, price, 가격, price, 가격, price, 가격, price, 가격, price. 가구, furniture, 가구, furniture, 가구, furniture, 가구, furniture, 가구, furniture. 가깝다, close, 가깝다, close, 가깝다, close, 가깝다, close, 가깝다, close. 가끔, sometimes, 가끔, sometimes, 가끔, sometimes, 가끔, sometimes, 가끔, sometimes. That's the idea. Do you get it? I will say it again. The important point here is not trying to memorize, but simply reading aloud continuously. So please try to proceed as quickly as possible. Once that is done, next you will try to recall the memorized words in test format. The method of the test is simple. Use an A4 sheet of paper to hide the English meanings, then look at the Korean words and check whether you can say the English meaning. It is easier to work if you fold the A4 paper in half and use it. At this time, do not force yourself to recall unknown words for 10 or 20 seconds. If the meaning does not come to mind within 1 second, immediately look at the answer. In my vocabulary list, it is made to memorize 40 words per column, but depending on the person, 20 or 10 at a time is also fine. For the words you cannot recall, just like before, read aloud the Korean and English alternately 5 times each, then move on to the next word. On the other hand, for the words whose meaning you could recall, immediately put a circle with your pen outside the frame. In other words, put a circle for the words you memorized and leave nothing for the words you did not. Once you have gone through all 40 words, go back to the beginning. When you go back to the beginning, repeat the memorization again, but this time only for the words without circles. Repeat this process, and once all 40 words have circles, you are finished. Probably towards the end, you may find cases like only one word is left and I can answer it immediately, but that is completely fine. Now let's practice together. Since this is the practice session, I'll focus on memorizing only the first 10 words this time. And I'll pretend to be a student who is trying hard to memorize, so please check how I do it here. Alright, let's get started. 가게, store, 가격, price, 가구, furniture, 가깝다, I don't know. 가깝다, close, 가깝다, close, 가깝다, close, 가깝다, close, 가깝다, close. Next, 가끔, sometimes, 가다, to go, 가르치다. I don't know. 가르치다. Okay. 가르치다, to teach. 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 가방. Bag. 가볍다. Wait. 가볍다. Light. 가볍다, light. 가수. Singer. That's the idea. Once you finish the first round, move on to the second and third rounds. This time, only going over the parts without circles. For example, you just focus on 3 words you cannot memorize. I'll show you. 가깝다, close. 가르치다, again, 가르치다. To teach. 가르치다, to teach. 가르치다, to teach. 가르치다, to teach. 가르치다, to teach. 가볍다, yes, I know, 가볍다, to be light. Okay, I memorized 2 words. Now I just say the last word. 가르치다, teach, to teach. And once every word has a circle, you're finished. This way, even if only temporarily, you will have memorized the words. Step 4, repetition. From here, I will move into the stage of repetition. As for the timing of repetition, it is good to review the material 1 day later and 1 week later. If you can do it this way, that is fine. However, for some people, recording and keeping track of reviews 1 day later or 1 week later may be troublesome. Also, the amount of study time can differ depending on the day. For example, you may have memorized 100 words yesterday, but today you do not have enough time to review them. In such cases, I recommend incorporating the time of repetition into the study order itself. For example, let's say you memorize 40 words at a time. This makes one group of 40 words. When you memorize the first group, then you move on to the second group. But before you move on to the third group, be sure to review the first group once again. The rule is simple. Every time you learn a new group of words, you review the group that came just before it. For example, you first learn the first group, then after learning the second group, you review the first group. Next, after learning the third group, you review the second group. After learning the fourth group, you review the third group. Finally, after learning the fifth group, you review the fourth group. In other words, the pattern is to learn a new group, then review the previous group, then move on to the next new group and review the previous group again, and so on. Once you have memorized about 100 to 200 words, review everything again from the beginning. By doing this, you will have gone through 3 full rounds of vocabulary review. Then, when you have memorized a total of about 100 to 200 words, go through everything once more as a review. By doing this, you will have completed 3 rounds of vocabulary review. Sometimes people study like this. On day 1, they learn the first group. On day 2, they review the first group and learn the second. On day 3, they review the first and second groups and learn the third. And so on, increasing the study range each day. At first glance, this may seem simple and easy to understand, but the problem is that the number of reviews becomes uneven. The first words are reviewed many times, while the last words are reviewed very few times. This is not efficient. So please refer to my way of arranging repetition. Also, I told you before that vocabulary should be reviewed 7 times in total. As for how to complete these 7 rounds, first, by using the method I just explained, you will be able to review all 1600 words 3 times. Then repeat the same process once more to reach 6 rounds. Finally, review all the words from start to finish in one continuous round, which makes 7 in total. By the 7th round, you will most likely be able to recall almost all of the meanings and pronunciations instantly. Please give it a try. Maintenance. Once you are able to recall words within 1 second, memorization is considered finished for the time being. However, in reality, most people make a big mistake here. What is that mistake? It is that they never review the words they have memorized again. In the beginning, they work hard to memorize, going through the vocabulary book many times. But once they think they have memorized the words, they relax and stop opening the vocabulary book altogether. Then after a few months, they realize they have forgotten the words they had memorized before. Oh no! The key point here is to review without letting your guard down. At the beginner level, you will learn 1600 words, but what is important is maintaining that vocabulary. Therefore, even after you have finished learning them, make sure to do a test-style review once a month for about 3 months. At that time, re-memorize and check again the parts you got wrong. The review is, in other words, maintenance. Think of yourselves as architects building a huge building called Korean inside your mind. Even if you make the building bigger and bigger, if the foundation cracks and collapses, it is meaningless. That's why, while building upwards, you must also continue maintaining the parts you have already completed. As you do this, the amount of maintenance gradually increases, right? That's the correct way to study. Some of you may think, wait, if that's the case, won't I end up spending all my time just reviewing? But there is no need to worry. If you are reviewing properly, even if the amount increases, you will be able to finish your review in a short time. If you can recall at 1 second level, you can finish reviewing the 1600 beginner words in about 1 hour. As the saying goes, make haste slowly. In the end, reviewing thoroughly is actually the most efficient way to increase your knowledge. In this way, studying is a repetition of learning new things and reviewing what you have learned. If you consistently review what you have finished learning while also studying new things, sooner or later you will definitely master Korean. So do not be afraid of forgetting. Face forgetting with the weapon called reviewing. This time, I explained the method to memorize 1600 words in 3 weeks. As the 3 key points for super efficient memorization, I explained repetition, 1 second memorization, sorting. Then, as for the actual practice of vocabulary memorization, I introduced concrete memorization methods using my beginner vocabulary book divided into 5 steps. These were preparation, pronunciation check, memorization, repetition, and maintenance. If you follow these 5 steps, you will surely be able to memorize words long-term and reliably. This method is not only used by me, but also by my students whom I teach daily, and it has consistent results. So please try it yourself. By the way, I'm currently running a service called Fast Korean, in which I put all of my knowledge and experience into thoroughly supporting my students' Korean learning. Many students, without studying abroad, while going to a high school, university, working, doing housework, or raising children, have achieved remarkable growth in a short period of time. However, recruitment for fast Korean is held irregularly. If, after watching today's video, you feel anxious and think, can I really do this on my own? Or if you sincerely wish to learn Korean directly from me, please register on newsletter subscription from the link in the description box and wait for further information. In Fast Korean, I teach not only the concrete methods of vocabulary memorization, but also everything necessary for learning Korean, including how to pass topic and the right mindset. Also, I will continue to share more and more useful information for those who are eager to succeed in Korean. So please don't forget to subscribe to this YouTube channel and click the bell icon. Then let's meet again in the next video. 그럼 오늘도 행복 가득, 웃음 가득한 하루 되세요. 한국어 파이팅 파이팅 파이팅!